Good morning, YouTube. Tire Metal Weatherman. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Want to first off start by saying I appreciate anyone who was on last night's live stream. We did go live for about 3 hours. Got started late because I got home from work late. So, anyone that was expecting me earlier in the day, I do apologize. Things just didn't quite go right for me. And then on top of that, there was a lot of computer troubles that I had to fight through to get the stream going. But once we did, though, it was pretty fun. A lot of silliness happened also as well, so anyone looking for some fun during the quieter moments, this is definitely the place to be. But that being said, we got to get to the brass tacks here, and there's 3 areas of slight risk today. This is the first one over towards Corpus Christi. This is mainly going to be for hail threat. This is where we could see some of the largest hail of the day. Also want to make note of this marginal threat, which is closer towards the hail capital, which is over towards Wyoming. This region usually will see a lot of hail during the summer. Then we also have Nebraska in there as well as parts of northern Colorado. The largest hailstones that have ever fallen on the planet Earth have actually fallen here in Wyoming, or at least in the U.S. I have to make sure that's the entire planet, but I think that Wyoming is the spot. That being said, our other slight risk areas are over towards the east coast of Florida and the Gulf Coast. The storm's ongoing right now towards the Gulf Coast, and then there's, like I said, the storms over here towards Florida. If we look at the tornado threat, relatively minimal, mainly confined towards the Gulf Coast today, and really that chance of tornadoes is going to exist mostly across the early part of the morning here, so no live stream for that, it looks like, unfortunately. Could be a chance of some storms refiring just north of this little 2% area here this evening. If things evolve with that, I might decide to go live for it. I'm not really sure. Then there's a sneaky little 2% area over here towards Little Rock and Jackson, Tennessee. As far as the wind threat, all 3 slight risk areas are in play, and then we have a 5% area over here towards the Rockies, or just north of it. The hail threat is going to be greatest, though, of course, over towards Texas, where the lapse rates are highest, instability is high, and then, of course, over towards Florida, which is interesting because normally the thermodynamic setup is sufficient enough for severe weather, but the lapse rates don't really lean into hail. It's a lot that goes into that. We'll try to get more in depth with hail at some point on here. But this is what we're dealing with right now in the composite reflectivity. This is giving us an idea of what the radar could look like throughout the course of the day. Stronger storms really start to fire after about maybe 9 o'clock, about 8, 9 o'clock across this region here. A couple embedded supercells in there. Tornado threat should be relatively minimal, but not zero. In fact, when we look at the soundings and hordeographs, not very impressive. So I'm hoping that nothing really comes of this. By noon, a few more storms will start to develop here. This line out ahead of this little main MCS that's gone through Texas looks a little bit interesting to me, but I don't see any major tornado potential from any of these at all. And here's that area that I was talking about where I'm having to keep a close eye on these storms here. I don't think the environment is really conducive to severe with these, but nonetheless, these are storms that start out discreet. But again, thermodynamics aren't really there. Well, the thermodynamics are there, but the kinematics are not. You can kind of see it based off the hordeograph here. The low-level winds are not very strong. Even the mid to upper level winds are not very strong with this. Still do get the tornado hordeograph here, which is interesting. So, I mean, it's somewhat worth watching, but I'm still just on the fence about it. I'm not entirely sure. Could get a sneaky tornado, but it most likely would be brief in nature. And then after that, might be a few storms that fire. Eventually, this all congeals into a nice little swath of rain here for the southeast as we head into Friday. If we move back towards Texas, once again, to take a look at the hail threat, mainly over towards Corpus Christi. It's going to be hard to keep a good look at. We're going to get some daytime heating developing over towards this region here. It's going to be hard to keep the time up. So this is about 15Z. Oops, went backwards. Will we get some storms developing later? This is going to actually be an early morning threat as well. So might not be a whole lot to really talk about towards the evening. We'll have to see what happens with that. Here are the parameters, though, that really will lead into what happens this morning. Like I said, there's some cape that pops up later in the day here, and that's somewhat why I'm kind of giving a close look at those storms. I'm kind of side-eyeing it just a bit. Again, I'm not super convinced that anything major can come of this, but with that amount of cape, anything's possible. This is actually the second tornado sounding that I've seen here. I've been kind of on the fence with this setup for a while, me and the rest of the admins that I have on here. But we've been kind of monitoring this a little closer. I do have a team that's starting to form. I'm proud to say that. Appreciate you guys, even though you guys are crazy. You might see some of that craziness on stream, but that depends on the situation. Things get wild, of course. We get down to business. But here's one reason why I'm not super concerned about a tornado threat at the moment. If we look at the bulk shear, there's really not a lot to work with. There's tiny little pockets here, though, which I do find interesting. But it's just not enough to really make me say at the moment, okay, this is going to be a big thing. You never know, though. And we still have plenty of time in the day. The lunchtime models are usually really telling of what's going to happen later in the evening. So, like I said, plenty more to go over before I make a decision on live or not. That's pretty much what we have going on there. And then last but not least, we'll take a look at the STP. If you see any values over your area, that means there's potential for tornadoes, but that's only if storms develop over that region. Sometimes you'll see values pop up in areas that don't even have a chance for tornadoes or thunderstorms even. So read into this with a grain of salt to a degree. So there is a very low STP over here, but nonetheless it's something worth watching. Earlier in the morning definitely doesn't seem as impressive here, so it's definitely something that we're gonna have to just monitor really close. But the hail threat with this is actually pretty notable. Will they extend the slight risk up north? That's further up to the north. That's a real question I have, because this is where the action seems like it's going to be later in the evening. But all the answers to these questions we will find out a little later. I got to get going to work, though. Again, I appreciate you guys being here. About to take my vitamins and get going. But this has been Tyre, Metalhead Weatherman. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care and have a good night. Or a good morning. And good rest of your day.